Well, here we are again. It's a Monday. Hope you're having a good Monday morning so far. I'm Marlon Bowling with you, your tour guide to the ag commodities. Well, as we get things ready to open up on the first daytime session this week, we have all kinds of things to consider that could push and pull on the markets here. And I want to welcome aboard Brian Hoops. He's the president of Midwest Market Solutions. He's based in Springfield, Missouri, and he joins us right now. All right, Brian, I'm glad to have you on board. First of all, let's catch up just a little bit. Last Friday, we had one of the weirdest things I've ever seen. We had that overnight export sale. Remember, Friday morning, we sold 133,000 tons of corn to China for new crop delivery. And then about noon hour, I guess, USDA came out with a statement and they said, basically, never mind, oops. They retracted it. Now, I've been doing this like 26 years. I have never seen that before, where USDA came out with a statement and they traded on it all day and then they said, no, never mind. What in the world? What is that all about?
That's a good question, Marlon, and I don't know that anybody has an answer to that, and they have not put out any statements since that time. It was what appeared to be a sale to China, then they canceled the sale or canceled the notification. We haven't seen any follow-up through it on this morning's news wires at all. So we're left to trade with weather, and I think most producers are ready to get back to trading weather. U.S. dollar, it did not trade higher overnight. It traded lower. It's, in fact, the lowest levels in a week, so that's a positive for our grain markets, and that's what I think people are trying to focus on, is this extreme heat that we've seen over the last week, and even hotter temperatures this week. It's going to be the hottest of the last decade here in Missouri where we're at, and crops are literally just burning up and cutting corn for silage value. Basis levels are going to explode even further in this area as they badly need to import some corn. So there's a lot of bullish fundamentals to talk about. Weather is a big one. A lower U.S. dollar is one. Of course, we'll have crop progress numbers out this afternoon. They should be 1% to 2% weaker, especially in the western belt. Now, the eastern belt did receive a little bit of rains over the weekend, so they may be steady type of ratings. But next week, you have to figure with out much rain, we're going to see further deteriorations in this corn crop and soybean crops.
Basically, there was a lot of rain, active rain showers on the radar over the weekend, but by and large, the vast majority of it fell in the northern half of the Corn Belt, right? Northern half of the plains and northern half of the Midwest. It did encroach a little further south this time, but where it did, it seemed like those amounts were a little lighter than had been hoped for. And when you have corn taking at least 40 hundredths a day right now, of moisture out of the ground and through evapotranspiration. I mean, 40 hundredths a day, less than half an inch isn't going to cut it this week.
Right, just lack of moisture in a lot of areas, and it's getting to the point where it's really extreme. Not only is it affecting crops, corn, soybeans, the winter wheat crop will be affected because it will be planted in virtually no moisture, but pasture conditions also continue to deteriorate, and that's affecting our livestock industry. So it's really becoming a major issue, a major story here. And then you talk about the heat and dryness in the U.S., but also in Europe, there's extreme heat. There was over 1,000 people killed over the weekend because of the extreme heat in France and Italy. So those are crops that they're growing there, also seeing a lot of deterioration, and that opens the door for the U.S. to maybe get some additional export business.
Yeah, I heard it was bad in Portugal and Spain as well. Okay, just a quick update here on the corn. Let's take a look at the big board. Our quotes from bar chart show December finishing 10.5 higher this morning at 614 1/4. Soybeans were on a rally mode last night, and look at November, up 33 cents this morning at 1375 1/4. So somebody's starting to notice. And in the wheat market, you had the September Chicago wheat 23 1/4 higher at exactly $8 this morning. We'll come back in a moment and we'll take a look at our livestock trade and our setup for this week when we come back. Well, we're back with you talking with Brian Hoops of Midwest Market Solutions. Now, let's take a look at the setup for the livestock trade. We saw how the grain market started to rally overnight, and I'm hearing more talk about how traders are coming to the realization, like, gosh, Shazam, it's going to be over 100 degrees over much of the plains this week, and in some cases much, much above 100 degrees. Well, that doesn't necessarily bode very well for livestock production, which has kind of had a tough go of it the way it is here lately. Now, what does this week mean?
We've talked to some producers already this morning that are out there trying to beat some of this heat coming later this week. We have a cattle on feed coming out on Friday. The placement numbers expect to be down quite a bit in this report, but next month's report, I think you're going to see a big push higher. These cattle just cannot stay on the grass. There's just not enough pasture out there that's in good condition to support these cattle. So they're going to have to either go into the slaughter it's being killed, or they have to go into the feedlots. And so we're going to see a big jump in the placement numbers. This report should be friendly, but I think at least for this morning's trade, we're going to see some weakness in both the feeder cattle and the live cattle for probably 1 or 2 days here, as the corn market is going to be higher, and that's going to put some pressure against the feeders. After that, we may start to trade the cattle on feed report, but look for cash trade to be lower this week under increased numbers of cattle willing to be moved at these heavier at this heat. They're just going to move them at whatever money they can get, I think.
Well, let's take a look at that livestock summary from last week. What kind of ranges did we have for the trade? Well, from what I understand, the ranges were pretty wide, and they may have even been a little wider than this. Live sales were 137 to 145 last week, depending on where you were. Dress basis sales, about a $10 range there, 224 to 234 last week. Carcass basis hogs, by the way, were down $1.46 on Friday across the country. Brian, I'm sure you probably saw the video coverage last week, too, of the sale barn in Texas that had pickups and trailers and just big trailers lined up for a mile in each direction waiting to unload. That was not a good sign.
It's a terrible situation for a lot of producers, and they're trying to do this before the extreme heat comes in, but you really don't want to do it any sooner than you have to either. But it's really a bad situation for our industry, and for for producers out there in the plains. They're just going to face some significant financial losses due to this heat and this drought that we're seeing.
We were lower Friday. August live cattle were down 47 cents as we wrapped up and headed into the weekend. The feeders, wow, August was down $2.55 on Friday afternoon. And on the lean hogs, we headed home for the weekend with August 25 higher, but all the other months about 70 to 97 cents lower. We'll see how they open up here this morning. Thanks for the help, Brian. I appreciate it very much. Brian Hoops of Midwest Market Solutions. So, Janet, we're about ready to kick this thing off. It could be a dramatic week.